Welcome to Practice Doula, the podcast for midwives at every stage of the journey. Whether you're exploring the calling, navigating school, launching your first practice, or evolving as a seasoned birth worker, this is your space for support, insight, and inspiration. I'm your host, Kim Pekin, certified nurse midwife, certified professional midwife, former birth center owner, and midwifery mentor. Let's grow together, one courageous step at a time. So welcome to Practice Doula. This is episode 4, what it really takes to start a midwifery practice. Some of this overlaps with some things that we've talked about before, but I thought it'd be good to just kind of do an overview episode of what it takes to start your midwifery practice. And so some of these topics require a lot of discussion, and we could talk about them for hours. But we're just going to give kind of a high level view, and you can decide where you want to dig in. You can always send me questions at doula@practicedoula.com. And I'm happy to answer questions. I may add them to a future episode. I'll keep your name private, no worries about that. But if you do have questions, please just submit them to doula@practicedoula.com. So when thinking about starting a midwifery practice, I think the first thing to do is to clarify your goals. What are you planning to do? Is your goal to have a solo practice where you aren't working with another midwife? So, is that what you want to do? Or do you want to partner with another midwife? Do you have a midwife friend that, you think, oh, it'd be really great to work together and we should open our own practice? Is that what you're looking for? Are you thinking more along the lines of hospital practice? In your area, typically that would mean partnering with an OBGYN, perhaps approaching an OBGYN about adding a midwifery program to their practice and working to build that with them. Are you hoping to build a large practice, or do you just want to stay small? Are you thinking home birth? Are you thinking of starting a birth center? So, basically clarify your goals. Maybe you want to be a hybrid practice where you offer birth center and home birth. So, one thing to do is really to look at what your state regulations are for midwifery. What can you do? How regulated is it? Your regulations may dictate whether you can have a birth center legally and what would be involved in opening a birth center. It also would determine what the requirements are for doing home birth. In some states, CPMs don't have legal recognition yet. And so, you have to think about that if you're a CPM. If you are a CM, there are even fewer states that regulate CMs, but that is growing. And so, you'd have to find out your regulations in your state, which you probably already know. And for a CNM, you're legal in all 50 states, but what are the requirements? Do you have to have a practice agreement with an obstetrician? Do you have full practice authority? So those kinds of things can have an impact on what type of practice you can open. So with that in mind, knowing your regulatory framework and your ultimate goals for your practice, I feel like the next step is to write a business plan. And this is where eyes glaze over. Seriously, write a business plan. It isn't that hard, actually. And it's a really useful process, I think, to get clear on what you want to do and how you want to do it. And there are some great templates in Microsoft Word. I think they're wonderful, and they will give you a great place to start. Definitely recommend working with ChatGPT or some other AI if you feel a little intimidated about writing a business plan. You can get some good feedback there and kind of talk out questions that you have. I find that to be particularly useful. But I wrote my business plans without AI. I wrote old school, wrote my business plans, but I did use templates in Word to help me out. So, but basically, business plan is different than just looking at whether having a practice would be financially feasible, although that is a big part of it. A business plan also helps you get clear on what the practice environment is like, what are the demographics of your area, what are the needs of your community that you wish to serve, and it helps you get some ideas for future marketing and help. One of the biggest parts of the business plan, and I think it's the thing around which everything else revolves, is your mission statement. And I think having a very well thought out mission statement is the starting place for developing your business plan. So when you're drafting a mission statement, try to get it all in one sentence if possible. This is going to take some work, but with perhaps a run-on sentence, you can probably fit it all in. So your mission statement basically is clarifying, what you believe, who you want to serve, why do you want to do this work, and what your values are, and why you think you are uniquely positioned to do that in your community. So there are a lot of good examples of mission statements out there, but I think really you have to search your heart and think about, why is this important to you? Why do you feel that opening a midwifery practice would be something that you want to do? What do you believe? So I was thinking about Courtney, who we interviewed episode 2, I think it was. She said that her belief, and the thing that really motivated her as a midwife, was her belief in the physiologic nature of birth. Is that what is inspiring to you? Is it autonomy? Is it family-centered care? What is it? What is it that you believe about midwifery care? What do you believe midwifery care can do? What do you think you can do as a midwife? Who do you want to serve? So some people really want to serve people who have certain like-minded beliefs, like people who are really organic, crunchy, if you will, the ones who want to use herbs and homeopathy and chiropractic and all the different alternative modalities that that seem pretty common in midwifery. Other people are more medically minded. So you may be seeking out people who want more of a middle of the road sort of experience. Maybe you're wanting to serve the Plain community, the Amish and Mennonite communities. Maybe you are a Christian midwife and you want to serve other Christians because you feel that that the spiritual side of birth is very important to you and to your own faith, and so you see it as a ministry more so than as a practice, although they both are true. Maybe you're part of the LGBTQ community and you want to serve queer families. There are a number of things that you may believe or feel strongly about or have values that you wish to reinforce. So think about that. Why do you want to do this work? Put it in a statement, and again, use ChatGPT or another AI if you're having trouble getting getting the words right. And it may take several drafts. And you may need to do it over several days and, write one draft and then come back to it and write another draft. So, but that's going to be your guide. That's your North Star. It's kind of like the Constitution for your practice. When you'll be presented with different opportunities as a provider, and the mission statement is the litmus test. So, for example, when I started Premier Birth Center, one of the statements in my mission statement, one of the clauses in that statement was that I believed in the transformative power of birth, and that I wanted to share that widely, that I wanted to share it with people who really wanted that. And so when I thought about insurance billing and I thought about making my services accessible, I wanted to make my services accessible to the largest audience possible. I didn't want finances to be the thing that got in their way. So I decided to go in network with insurance. Whether that was a wise choice or not is debatable, and that's a whole other episode. But it definitely guided my decision making regarding insurance billing. Ultimately, I did go in network, and that did broaden our reach, and we were able to reach people for whom midwifery care had been inaccessible previously. So, think about what it is that you want, and try and get it all in a sentence. So then the next thing, once you have your mission statement, you need to think about your entity type. And we're going to cover this in a future podcast, but there's different types of business entities. There are LLCs, there are corporations, there are LLCs taxed as corporations, there are sole proprietorships, partnerships. There's all different ways that you can set up your practice. You need to consult with your attorney and CPA and get advice from them about what is best for you and what will give you the most asset protection if you were to be sued, and to think about what types of tax implications there might be based on the entity type that you choose. So, assuming you have that all figured out and you've registered your business in whatever state you live in, you've filed the paperwork with the State Corporation Commission and the IRS and all of that, then it's time to set up accounts with lab vendors like LabCorp and Quest, and they're great to work with, and they will provide all the supplies that you need for labs. You can get like if you're planning on working out of your home, you can get a lab box for your home and get lab pickup at your home. Some lab companies will send you a printer and labels to label your specimens. So, basically you need to find out who the lab representative is that serves your area, and let them know what you're planning to do, and see how they can support you. And they really want your business. So, try to negotiate discounted self-pay rates so that you could pass that on to your clients. And, they'll take care of billing insurance for all of your labs and everything. So definitely talk with the lab rep that serves your area. Just call the lab company and let them know that you want to set up an account and that you would like to speak with a lab rep, and they'll be happy to help you. Another thing you need to think about is accounting software. I'll say just about everybody uses QuickBooks in my experience, but I know some people who have just kept track of their bills like on paper, old school, or who just use an Excel file for finances. I used to do accounting for a living. For me, I really wanted the capabilities that QuickBooks has. And, if you have someone who is an accountant who can help you in setting it up, even better, because there's certain ways you can set it up that can automate some functions and can really save you a lot of time and hassle. So I definitely would recommend working with a CPA that's familiar with setting up QuickBooks. I know Intuit on their website, they can connect you with a QuickBooks specialist who can help you get set up as well. So, but it's important to talk with your CPA because there's certain aspects of how you set it up. For example, determining whether you're going to be using cash or accrual accounting. You need to get that right from the beginning. So, talking about like, are you accepting deposits and how are refunds issued and all of that. And these are things that that you need to talk with your CPA about so that you can get it set up properly from the beginning. And you need to decide if you're going to bill insurance. Some people do not bill insurance, just have a self-pay practice and do very well. And, billing insurance does add another level of complexity to your life. And especially if you're in network, it definitely adds a lot of complexity. If you're going to be billing insurance for your clients, I strongly recommend connecting with a billing specialist. I worked with a billing company for a very long time, Larson Billing. They were my partners. They were part of my practice. I could not have done what I did without the services of my insurance billing team. And they offered a wide variety of services for me. They were able to just do the insurance billing, or they were willing to take on, and ultimately this is what I did, they took on verifying people's insurance, that they had it, what their deductibles were and all of that, came up with payment plans for people, did all the collections and everything. And so, they did a lot of the work. I still had to submit super bills. I still had to handle refunds and all of that, but they were so helpful and they were such an integral part of my business. I don't know how I could have operated a practice without them. There are a lot of other billing companies out there. I definitely would recommend finding a biller who will work within the constraints of law. There are a lot of people out there who are doing some kind of shifty things like billing. I heard that there was a biller who was billing a facility fee for home birth because she brings the birth center there. She brings her equipment there. That is not legal. You can't do that. That is not a facility. So that can get you into some big hot water, and it's just not worth the legal risk to do that. So there are definitely some things you need to know yourself about insurance, like what the laws are and what you can and can't do. You need to know the laws around balance billing. And if you're in network with insurance, you need to understand your insurance contracts. And you need to have contracting and credentialing people to help you if you don't want to do all that legwork yourself. I strongly recommend getting somebody who knows how to do that because it is quite an undertaking to do all of that yourself. I started working on getting contracted with insurance on my own and very quickly found out I was over my head. And I turned that over to my billing company, and that was a really good decision. Another thing to think about is whether you need an office. There are midwives I know who just have a small home office just for bookkeeping purposes and a place to keep supplies. And they see clients in their own home, not their home, but like the client's home. Like they just drive around from client to client. I did that for a while. I found it exhausting. I really wanted to have a brick and mortar place, an office. But there are some people, they've just kind of built their life around that. And that's, totally, if you want to do that, more power to you. But I needed an office. And so, think about that though. Some people will just have an office and home. They'll have maybe a spare bedroom in their home that they can use as a midwifery office, and that's all that they need. So, you have to decide whether you want people coming into your home. It doesn't take much to have an office and home. You'll need to check your city ordinances and find out if there is, like, if you need to register for a home occupancy permit, a home office occupancy permit. There may be a special business license you need for office and home. That is the case in my town. You have to have a license with the town. So, you'll just have to look into that and find out if that's something you want to do. And you have to decide whether you want people coming to your home and whether your family wants that if you have other people that you live with. So, that's an important consideration as well. The next thing to think about is staffing. So if you plan to grow, if you plan to do more than just maybe 1 or 2 births a month as a home birth person, then you probably are going to need some administrative staff, even part-time. And having a good admin person is so helpful. They can answer emails, and they can help people get set up on with their paperwork, and they can shuffle stuff back and forth to the insurance companies, and so having admin staff is super helpful. But some people can't afford admin staff. They have to do it themselves, or they just don't want that level of complexity of having an employee, and so they decide to stay small, and that's fine too. There's a lot of things that you can do with automation to handle things like through your website for new prospective clients. They can fill out a form, and then you contact them and give them more information about how to get started with your practice or whatever. You can handle that all yourself, but having a good admin person is probably one of your first hires. Other people you need to think about, of course, are the clinical staff. So, I firmly believe that for community birth, it's important that you have 2 trained clinical people at every birth. I chose to work with registered nurses as birth assistants. There are student midwives who may be interested in being birth assistants for you, but they vary in their level of skill. At least as an RN, there's a certain knowledge base and skill base that that the RNs will have. But sometimes working with a student or a professional birth assistant is the way to go. You can decide whether you want that expense paid by the clients directly, or if you want to handle that yourself. So either way is fine. But, that will determine what you need to take care of as far as paperwork goes. You'll need to have a birth assistant contract so that you can lay out the expectations for contractors in your practice. If they're just part-time and you are directing their work, and then they may be an employee. So you need to think about that. If they are able to take on other midwives clients as birth assisting clients, if they direct their own work, they provide their own supplies, they have their own schedule or whatever, then they could be contractors. So it really just kind of depends. The IRS is really clear on guidelines regarding contractors versus employees, so I definitely recommend looking at the IRS website for guidance there. If you are hiring somebody, you'll want to have an employment contract with probably a non-disclosure agreement. You should consult an attorney and have your attorney draw up whatever contracts make sense for contractors and for employees. If you're having employees, you'll want to have an employee handbook, and that would go over things like what are your policies for sick leave and vacation time, and just, dress code and all sorts of things. There are lots of examples of employee handbooks online. If you are planning birth center accreditation, the CABC has indicators that tell you what you need to include in all of that. That can be a resource for you, even if you're not going to ultimately become accredited as a birth center. You can use that criteria to build your own employee handbook for home birth practice or for birth center practice where the birth center isn't accredited. One thing you might want to think about is background checks. I always did background checks for all of my employees. It was part of our accreditation requirements with CABC. But especially if you are having somebody handle money, doing a background check with a business credit check may be a really good step to take. I have heard a lot of horror stories about embezzlement, and I just think that it's an important step to take. It doesn't cost much. You can use a company like Checker, and they can do a background check for you for not a whole lot of money, and do it very quickly as well. Usually I would get those back within hours, and I know they were under $100, so it wasn't a lot of money, but it was just a step I felt was important. You may want to have a vaccination policy. Some people don't want people to be vaccinated, and some people want their employees to have hepatitis B vaccines, and OSHA regulations, I believe, require that you offer hepatitis B vaccine for people if they are working for you and they have exposure to bloodborne pathogens. So, consult with OSHA and your local regulations and find out what it is that's required in your area. You'll also want to get set up for employment taxes, and your state employment commission has information there for how to register. You'll need to have your taxpayer ID number so that you can get set up to make payroll tax deposits and file payroll tax forms. And then you need to get set up with workers' compensation, and QuickBooks makes that really a simple process. If you use their payroll system, then they will connect you with a company that can provide workers' compensation insurance, and it's not very expensive. You could get fined for not having workers' compensation insurance, so you are better off having it, and then you don't have to worry about that. Another thing you might want to think about is health insurance and other benefits. If you're self-employed and you don't have any employees, and maybe you have a partner that has health insurance and benefits, maybe health insurance isn't a big deal for you. I've been self-employed since 1995. My husband's been self-employed that long too, and so we've had to provide our own benefits for 30 years now, and it's expensive, but you are providing for the livelihood of your staff, and if they are employees, seeing if there's some way that you can offer health insurance is a really great benefit to them. So you may want to look into that. There's some very affordable plans that you can access as a small business. So it'd be good to talk with an insurance agent about that. Then you need to think about how you take care of your clients and the forms that you need, like your consent to care, your informed disclosure for midwifery care, HIPAA notice, all of your informed choice documents. Practice Doula has samples of that you can use and customize for yourself. And so if you go to practicedoula.com, you can see those and purchase some that you can customize yourself, or you can do it from scratch. I just provide that so that if you'd rather not have to go to that trouble, you can benefit from the work that I've already done. One thing that I did was I created a care guide, and I have that for sale on the Practice Doula website as well. And the care guide has all of the educational materials that you would give to a client during their care, about nutrition and getting your birth supplies together and doing a birth plan and things that you can do to stay healthy during your pregnancy. And so the care guide was really helpful for my practice. I got it professionally printed, and clients really liked having it. They would bring it to visits, and we would talk about different sections of it when they would come for visits. So, if you're interested in that, I can certainly help you with that. Another thing that you might want to think about is advertising and marketing your practice. You can do as much or as little as you want with that. When I first started out, I just did social media, and I had some Google ads for a while. I ended up dropping those because I found that after a while, my practice, when people would search for midwives in the area, it would just go to the top anyway, so I didn't really need the Google ads. But we had plenty of website traffic without them. But social media, setting up your Facebook and Instagram, and if you are talented and want to do TikTok videos and things, those can be really helpful. And, I've always been told that you need to, when you're thinking about advertising, meet your customers where they are. And people that we serve, people of childbearing age right now, they, generally speaking, are plugged into all of the social media, and they get a lot of their information there. So having a good social media presence is important. You can do that yourself. You can also hire somebody who can help you with it. As you get busier and busier, you may decide that you want to have somebody who can just push content out there on a regular basis for you. So I have recommendations for people that you could use for that. If you are interested in that, just let me know. You can write a blog, you can do a podcast, you can establish yourself as an expert in your communities for, legislators, if they want to come and talk to somebody about midwifery in their district. Introduce yourself to your local legislators. It's important that they know who you are and know how to find you. One thing that I did that was super helpful and was a key part of my marketing plan was hosting information sessions. During COVID, I started doing them on Zoom, and that worked great. It worked for people because then they didn't have to drive anywhere, and they could get a lot of their really easy questions answered. I do think they're more effective in person, though. And so, if you have an office, doing information sessions in person can be a really great way to go. I have content outlines for information sessions if you're interested in that. But basically, we would cover what to expect from care with the practice, tell about, the benefits of giving birth in the community as opposed to a hospital birth, talk about my plan for hospital transfer if that was needed. And, after a while, you get a list of FAQs, and you can use that to guide your content for your information session. So I know that's a lot. It may seem overwhelming, but, I've only really scratched the surface. Don't get overwhelmed. It can seem overwhelming, but you can do this. And Practice Doula and I are here to support you. So join our community and get plugged in so that you can make contacts with people and get more ideas on how to start your own practice. So your Practice Doula challenge this week is to write your mission statement. So, we talked about that earlier in this episode. So write your mission statement, and if you want to share that with me, I would love to hear it. I would love to see what you come up with. Thanks for listening to Practice Doula. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please subscribe, share with a friend, or leave a review. It helps more midwives find us, and you can learn more about us at practicedoula.com.